lot has happened in the 5 years since Halo's most famous hero has been a Master Chiefsicle. Call of Duty has taken over as the most popular franchise on the Xbox, and the Halo series has changed hands, from Bungie to a new studio, 343 Industries. But you probably knew that already. What you really want to know is, what has 343 done to Halo? Did they break it? Did they ruin it? After all, 343 has never shipped anything before, and they're assuming the mantle from a top-tier studio that's earned its golden reputation. But there's another question you have to ask yourself, a much scarier but also much more exciting question. What if Halo 4 is the best Halo ever? Unexpectedly, one of the very biggest and best surprises of Halo 4's phenomenal campaign is that it's actually not Master Chief's story, but rather Cortana's. As an old AI construct, she's reached a point in her programming evolution where she's actually thinking herself into insanity, and the way she and Chief must work to keep each other safe and sane is the heart of Halo 4's much more personal story. It starts right away, as soon as Master Chief is thawed out from cryosleep. Her voice begins scratching, and soon she begins having emotional outbursts that defy her programming logic. As the game goes on, it's actually Cortana that gets you into as much trouble as any Covenant or Promethean alien does, and it's up to the Chief to reassure her and be her rock of support.
I will not allow you to leave this planet!
Halo 4's graphics are nothing short of astounding. Halo hasn't been able to claim the title of best looking game on Xbox since Halo 2 on the original Xbox. Your eyeballs get treated to one gorgeous set piece after another over the course of the campaign's 8 missions. Remember the first time you touched down on the Halo ring in Combat Evolved? When you crash land on the planet Requiem and look out over a huge valley and its floating Forerunner architecture, it's that same goosebump-raising feeling. And that's just the second level. That same sense of awe is visible in the cutscenes, too. Characters look as good as any video game humans this side of LA Noire, with living eyes, realistic expressions both subtle and extreme, and spot-on motion capture. Meanwhile, the Chief himself looks more badass than ever. His armor is scraped, scratched, and scarred, and the sounds of its pieces flexing, bumping, and sliding against each other are subtle but add a very humanizing element to a guy who's always been known as a faceless, robotic badass. Speaking of sounds, every sound effect, from the boom of a shotgun to the crack of the DMR, has been redone. Weapons sound beefier and more intimidating. Meanwhile, voice actors Steve Downes and Jen Taylor as Master Chief and Cortana, respectively, are given more to do than ever, and they deliver. Cortana is vulnerable, and it's Chief who must think clearly when she can't. It's a fascinating reversal that is sold by Taylor's stellar performance. Halo 4 succeeds for a lot of reasons, but the foundation of it all can be boiled down to one thing. Guns, guns, guns. Okay, that's 3 of the same thing, but the potency and power of Halo 4's arsenal cannot be emphasized enough. The combat engine in this game has been refined to a T. No matter what kind of enemy you're fighting, whether it's one of the new super smart Promethean bad guys like the Teleporting Knight or the Protective Watcher, and no matter what distance you're engaging them from, there's a firearm for every situation. Meanwhile, the campaign is paced better than any shooter in recent memory, with small-scale, on-foot firefights deftly mixed with huge vehicle battles. The enemies are whip-smart, and you'll have to play on heroic or legendary difficulty to see them at their full brain power. Just be prepared for some serious pain. Compared to past Halos, even heroic has been beefed up in difficulty. So what about multiplayer? Well, Halo 4 exceeds expectations once again. Halo Reach's armor abilities return with some new ones thrown in. And new to the Halo party are some Call of Duty style perks. Don't worry, it all suits Halo just fine, and combined with Halo 4's killer weapons, it makes Halo's multiplayer more potent than ever. That's backed up by 10 maps and 3 additional Forge levels to build and/or battle on. None jumped out as Lockout-style instant classics, but they're all excellent, highlighted by Exile for big vehicle action, the Valhalla remake Ragnarok for some awesome Mantis action, and the smaller, symmetrical insanity of Haven. The last piece of the multiplayer puzzle is the new Spartan Ops mode. It's a weekly downloadable series of missions, each broken up into 3 to 5 chapters. All you need is an Xbox Live Gold account and you'll be up to your ears in free Halo 4 side missions for the next 10 weeks. Each chapter's objectives vary slightly and add a bit of extra co-op fun to the Halo 4 multiplayer suite, but what it provides in its full season of quantity, it loses in replayability. There's no scoring system or much other excuse to go back and play each episode more than once, unlike the firefight mode that this takes the place of. Still, it's nothing less than a value add, and hopefully the included storylines each week will be good enough to get invested in.
Look out!
A few notable story threads are left annoyingly hanging, and some of the flip 3 switches areas of the campaign can feel like a bit of a grind on higher difficulty levels. But here's the bottom line. Halo 4 is incredible. It's probably fair to say that it's better than I think any of us, hardcore fan or casual, thought it had any chance of being. Microsoft clearly gave 343 a blank check for Halo 4, and every last cent shows up on the screen. For me, this isn't just the best Halo, it's probably the best Xbox game this year, and quite possibly the best video game on any platform in 2012. Halo 4 surprises, delights, and kicks serious ass, and it suddenly makes the wait for Halo 5 on the next generation Xbox a lot harder. I haven't been this excited about a Halo since Halo 2, and that makes me happier than you know. Master Chief is back, baby. For more on Halo 4, and boy, is there a lot more, head on over to IGN.
Skeptics among you might believe Black Ops 2 to simply be more of the same. Well, you're wrong. A host of improvements to multiplayer make it better than ever. Zombies is more fleshed out and bigger than what's come before. But most of all, Treyarch's taken the campaign in an unexpected direction, delivering on the promise of player choice and divergent stories. This isn't just another Call of Duty. This is, in many ways, a new beginning for the franchise. A benchmark that sets a new standard for not only what fans should expect for the series, but for big-budget shooters in general. Since there's so much to cover in this game, we're going to do things a little differently and break down the game into 3 distinct sections. Let's start with the campaign.
Time on target, 30 seconds. Shit, that was close!
Black Ops 2's campaign has the big moments we've all come to expect. Vehicle crashes? Check. Epic firefights? Yep. But what's really surprising is that the campaign manages to tell a story that not only makes sense, but is also emotionally engaging. This is partially due to the great facial capture Treyarch's employed, cutscenes that help flesh out the story, and great writing. During the Cold War era segments of the campaign, you play as a combination of returning characters from the first Black Ops, while in the very plausible feeling future segments, you play as protagonist Alec Mason's son, David. It'd be easy to muddle the time skipping, but here it's juggled well, coming together to form a story unlike any other in the series. Dark Knight writer David Goyer and game director David Anthony wove together an atypical narrative, with a villain that's both menacing and sympathetic. His name is Raul Menendez, and he forms the foundation for the plot, stealing the spotlight away from the heroes. The story feels decidedly mature, and far less brotacular than the typical COD fare. The best part of Black Ops 2's story, though, is that you get to shape its outcome. Like many people, I was skeptical about how well Treyarch would actually implement player decisions into the campaign, but they've done a fantastic job. Some choices you make are strictly binary, but more often they're subtle, relying on whether or not you finish certain mission objectives. Throughout the story, you'll see that different characters can live or die depending on your actions, and everything you do influences which of the multiple endings you'll get. Of course, shooting is what Call of Duty games do better than the rest, and Black Ops 2 is no exception. The engine may not look as good as some games, but it consistently runs at 60 FPS, resulting in the crisp and responsive controls that no other shooter ever quite matches. There's always plenty to shoot in the campaign, and it's paced well with lots of breaks for more intimate story moments, as well as vehicle segments that put you in control of futuristic jets and creepy spider-like infiltration robots. Combat also feels a bit different depending on the time you're playing in, with Cold War-era weaponry juxtaposed against futuristic yet believable tech of 2025. While they're instrumental to the outcome of the campaign and are a step in a good direction, the Strike Force mission's controls leave much to be desired. These missions place you in control of a group of soldiers, drones, and other units, tasking you with a variety of objectives and forcing you to lead them into battle. You can take direct control of any unit at any time, as well as issue them commands, which is a cool thing to see in action. The problem is that most of the time I felt like I had to win the fight on my own, and since I couldn't even have my forces rally on me, and they only seemed to be great at taking bullets that would otherwise hit me, I generally just ordered all my forces to move to a point. It didn't feel strategic, and it was immensely frustrating. Succeed or fail though, these missions will change the course of your campaign, at times dramatically. That alone makes them worth struggling through.
Nice work, Mason!
Hunter-killer drone on standby.
Once you've gotten through the campaign, it's on to multiplayer, which has also changed in significant ways. It all begins from the moment you start, where you can jump right into regular online multiplayer, getting those endorphin rushes as you constantly level up and unlock items for your loadout. Or you can ease yourself into the experience with combat training against bots, and still earn experience. If that isn't appealing, you can skip the unlock grind and get competitive with the new League Play mode. This mode gets you right into the action, and after 5 placement matches, puts your team in a league where you can fight your way up from. It's a smart addition that shows how forward-thinking Treyarch is when it comes to integrating Call of Duty into the esports scene. What I like about all these options is that it shows that Treyarch doesn't care if you decide to do custom games against bots armed with axes, or if you want to form a team and hit the competitive scene, or even if you just want to learn from the beginning because you've never played the game before. They've made a super encompassing multiplayer experience that accommodates players regardless of their skill level. The desire to give players more choices also comes across in the new Pick 10 class loadout system. Here, every part of a loadout is given a value of 1, and you can delete and edit your perks, attachments, weapons, and accessories until they form a combination that adds up to 10. They've also added a new set of options called wildcards into the mix, which allows you to break game rules, giving you access to, say, 3 attachments on a weapon, or even allowing you to take more than 3 perks in a loadout. All in all, this results in the most robust creative class system to date, and gives even the most experienced players a host of new classes to try, tweak, and experiment with. Additional modes return alongside fan favorites to create a multiplayer you can easily lose hours to. On top of standard modes like Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, and Search and Destroy, as well as the returning Kill Confirmed, we get the fun options of Hardpoint and multi-team battles. Hardpoint is essentially a King of the Hill mode with a roaming capture pool. The multi-team battles mix things up considerably though, changing the dynamic of modes by allowing you to play 3 teams of 4, or 4 teams of 3, or a number of other combinations. When 4 or more small packs of players are roaming a map of Kill Confirmed, it gets nuts, creating an intensity and competitiveness that larger 2-team battles just can't match. If you want others to see the madness and are playing on PS3 or Xbox, you can even live stream your matches. Black Ops 2 social features are easily as elaborate as last year's Modern Warfare 3, with added features that give even the most hardcore players interesting ways to stay connected to Call of Duty, even when they're not shooting. You can watch and create videos in theater, spectate in matches and shoutcast them afterwards, or, for PS3 and Xbox 360 players, check out your stats and an array of other interesting data in Call of Duty Elite. Rounding out the wealth of gameplay options in Black Ops 2 is the tongue-in-cheek zombies mode. You can still do the typical survival mode, but that feels a bit hollow and superfluous now that they've included transit. It's not so much a campaign with a real story as the pre-release rhetoric led me to believe, but an adventure mode. Mechanically, it's the same as survival, where you hold out against waves of increasingly difficult zombies for as long as possible. But the difference is that you have a decent-sized world to roam around in, with multiple areas you can go between via a defensible bus. The fun of it isn't in having a story told to you, but in discovery. The transit lore is intentionally vague, and it's up to you and your team to figure out how to interact with it, where its secrets lie, and how best to survive. Even though each playthrough ends in death, it's still rewarding when you've learned something new that you can integrate into your ever-growing transit routine. Co-op also presents a fun change from the hyper-competitiveness of the multiplayer. Or, if you feel like being a bastard, you can always team up with your friends to take on other survivors in the new Grief mode. This mode places you in one of a couple survival locations from transit, and together with your team, you see if you can outlast another team of 4. You can't directly affect one another outside of the stun that interrupts revives, or by throwing meat that attracts zombies, but there's a certain madness to each round. You're racing to kill zombies to score resources for yourself, trying to protect your team, and at the same time attempting to funnel the enemy team into a position where they can get torn to pieces. It's a balancing act that provides a nice twist to the standard zombies formula. If that's not enough, they've also included custom game options for zombies, allowing you to do things like set it to be headshots only, or pick your starting round. What these options really do though, is they let you and your friends create an experience that's more closely tailored to your zombie fantasy.
Alright, let's go, bitch!
The addition of Pick 10, multi-team battles, and the fantastic integration of player choice in the campaign have made Black Ops 2 a superior Call of Duty experience. It's still easily recognizable for longtime fans, but it builds upon the foundation set down by the series, and challenges what we've come to expect from an annualized franchise. There's just so much game here to mess around with and enjoy, and if you've ever been a fan that got burnt out on the franchise, or are finally looking to jump in for the first time, there's no finer point than Black Ops 2. For more on Call of Duty, Black Ops 2, keep it at IGN.
After the disappointment of Need for Speed The Run, Most Wanted is a brilliant and blistering return to form for EA's flagship racing series, but you'd expect nothing less coming from Criterion, the studio behind Hot Pursuit and the Burnout games. In fact, Most Wanted is a racing game for people who don't usually buy racing games, because you're not punished for deviating from that perfect racing line or for missing the crucial apex. In fact, deviation is something it actively encourages. You'll explore back roads and rooftops, beaches and factories, but Most Wanted, as its title suggests, also encourages deviance. You'll break the speed limit, ram police cars into oncoming traffic, and jump across unfinished bridges, and you'll be rewarded for it too. Need for Speed Most Wanted is an impeccably well-made game. The attention to detail is quite extraordinary, and the production values are frequently astonishing, and it's the cumulative effect of all these little touches that makes Most Wanted such a stunning and accomplished game. But time and care have also been invested into planning the streets of Fairhaven. At first, the city seems limited, a little samey and urban, but over the course of the game you'll explore its hidden depths and see sides you never knew existed, from underground tunnels to power plants and airplane graveyards. The whole experience is wonderfully continuous. When the race ends, it doesn't reset the world. The action seamlessly carries on. So if you were being chased by the police at the end of your last race, they'll still be on your tail when it's over. This fluid experience is further enhanced by Easy Drive, which enables you to access every aspect of the game, from races to your garage of cars, without ever taking you away from the tarmac. The aim of the game is to become the city's best street racer. To achieve this, you need to rack up speed points by winning races, setting off speed cameras, and evading the cops. Crucially, speed points give you the edge by enabling you to mod your cars, adding nitrous, switching chassis, and more. The same mods are available to each car, but you'll have to start from scratch every time. It's slightly repetitive to unlock the same mods time and again, but the variety of races themselves make up for it. Of course you could just jack a better car. One of the best things about Most Wanted is that most of its 41 cars are available to drive right from the start, from the mundane Lancia Delta to the highly desirable Aston Martin V12 Vantage. You just have to find them. Each car has 5 races of varying difficulty open to it, and they're fairly varied too, from straightforward circuit races to speed runs, which require you to maintain a ludicrously high average speed while avoiding traffic. Most races are complicated by the presence of Fairhaven's cops. They'll do everything they can to stop the race by ramming you off the road, dropping spike strips in your path and blocking entire intersections. But over time you'll come to know not only the streets of Fairhaven, but also its back alleys. A big part of the fun is antagonising and losing the boys in blue, whether that's by venturing into one of the city's many restricted areas, or patiently hiding in the shadows like Ryan Gosling in Drive. Once you've acquired a respectable amount of speed points, you'll be able to take on the city's most notorious racers one by one. 10 racers stand between you and your ultimate goal of becoming Fairhaven's most wanted. These racers drive the most desirable cars in the game, from concept designs to the absurdly fast Bugatti Veyron, and if you can beat them, you can take their wheels. They're kind of like boss battles, periodically testing your skills. Gameplay is really accessible, and the car's handling is wonderfully unrealistic. Once you have mastered drifting around corners and how to use nitrous effectively, you'll find yourself competitive in most races. It's incredibly fast and frantic. You'll crash and jostle with other racers, frequently engineering the misfortune of those around you. You'll discover shortcuts on the fly that help you take the lead, and when it all comes together, as it frequently does, it's genuinely exciting. Although Easy Drive theoretically lets you mod your car on the fly when travelling at such high speeds, it's really not all that practical. If you know an off-road section is coming up, switching tyres just isn't worth the risk of crashing into a wall. It's also a shame that some cars are restricted to certain races, but these are minor gripes that don't take the sheen away from what is an otherwise perfectly polished game. In multiplayer, Fairhaven will be populated by your friends. You can choose to drive together or take part in set lists, which combine events in different ways, from team races to seeing who can make the biggest jump. It's all underpinned by the game's same free-flowing nature. But even if multiplayer isn't your thing, you'll constantly be compared with your friends to see who is currently the most wanted. You'll be judged on so many different aspects. It's all done subtly and effectively, and is a really smart, unobtrusive way of introducing competition into the very landscape around you. Need for Speed Most Wanted is a game that craves speed and rewards aggression and risk-taking. Equally, it has a healthy disregard for reality and the laws of physics. You'll jump improbable distances, drift around corners with shredded tyres, and drive away from the most spectacular crashes unharmed. But the execution of Most Wanted is so good. You'll find quality in almost every aspect. The visuals, the gameplay, the world design. It all combines to make Most Wanted one of this year's most exhilarating experiences. For the latest on Need for Speed Most Wanted, keep it locked on IGN.